It was a quiet Sunday morning in West Des Moines, Iowa, in September of 1982. A 12-year-old boy named Johnny Gosch vanished during his paper route. His disappearance would terrify a community, spark a nationwide movement, and remain one of America's darkest mysteries. What happened to Johnny Gosch? Who took him? And why, more than 40 years later, are we still left with more questions than answers? Johnny Gosch wasn't famous. He wasn't a kid from the headlines. He was simply a boy growing up in the suburbs of Iowa. The kind of child who could have lived next door to you. Born in 1970, Johnny was the youngest child of John and Noreen Gosch. He was 12 years old in September of 1982, filled with curiosity, energy, and that spark of independence children begin to crave as they approach their teenage years. His parents described him as quick-witted, caring, and adventurous. His friends recalled his sense of humor, how he could make people laugh even during ordinary school days. Johnny had a dachshund named Gretchen, whom he adored. He had recently taken on a paper route, delivering the Des Moines Register. That job gave him a sense of responsibility, but more importantly, freedom. Unlike many kids his age, Johnny woke up before dawn on weekends, gathered his stack of papers, and walked the quiet suburban streets while most of his neighborhood was still fast asleep. It was, in many ways, the perfect symbol of early 80s America: a boy, his red wagon, and the suburban calm of Iowa. Nobody could have guessed that this routine would be shattered in an instant. It was Sunday, September 5, 1982. The air was crisp, the sun still hidden, the streets silent except for the chirping of insects. Johnny woke up early, excited to do his paper route alone. Normally, his father accompanied him, but that morning, Johnny insisted he was ready to take it on by himself. Noreen later recalled their final conversation. Johnny wanted to bring Gretchen along, but she told him the dog would get in the way. Instead, Johnny put on his jeans and sweatshirt, grabbed his red wagon, and left the house at 5:45 a.m. That was the last time his parents saw him. On his route, Johnny was spotted by at least 3 witnesses. They described him picking up his newspapers from the corner drop box at 42nd Street and Marquardt Lane. Around the same time, a suspicious car, a 2-toned blue Ford Fairmont, was seen cruising the neighborhood. One neighbor later told police that a man inside the car stopped and spoke to Johnny. Another boy delivering papers that morning recalled seeing a stranger on foot who seemed out of place. And then, in the span of minutes, Johnny was gone. By 6:30 a.m., his red wagon was discovered abandoned, filled with undelivered newspapers. The papers were scattered on the ground, as if dropped suddenly. There was no sign of Johnny. When Johnny didn't return by 7:30 a.m., his parents grew uneasy. At first, they assumed he was late or chatting with friends. But by 8 o'clock, they knew something was wrong. Noreen immediately began calling neighbors. She learned that Johnny had been seen minutes earlier, but now nobody knew where he was. By 8:30, the Gosches contacted the West Des Moines Police Department. The response was chillingly dismissive. Police told the Gosches that Johnny was probably a runaway. It was standard procedure at the time. Children weren't treated as missing until 72 hours had passed. But Noreen knew her son. She insisted Johnny would never run away. Frustrated by the slow response, the Gosches began their own search. Neighbors, friends, and volunteers canvassed the area. Hundreds of flyers with Johnny's picture were printed and distributed, but the boy was nowhere to be found. By nightfall, the Gosches faced the unbearable truth. Their son had vanished, and the system wasn't prepared to help them. If police weren't going to fight for Johnny, Noreen would. In the days that followed, she became a force of nature. She contacted the FBI, hired private investigators, and organized massive search parties. She was relentless, appearing on local television, calling reporters, and demanding attention for her son's case. Her efforts paid off. Within weeks, Johnny's disappearance made national headlines. For the first time, many Americans began to realize that child abductions weren't just urban legends. They could happen in quiet suburbs, in safe neighborhoods, to ordinary families. By 1984, Johnny's face appeared on milk cartons as part of a new awareness campaign. Millions of Americans saw his haunting smile every morning at breakfast. Johnny had become a symbol of a national crisis. But for Noreen, this was no symbol. This was her child, and she was determined to bring him home. Johnny's case might have been dismissed as a tragedy unique to one family, if not for what happened next. In August 1984, another Iowa paperboy vanished. Eugene Martin, age 13, disappeared while delivering newspapers in Des Moines. Like Johnny, his wagon of newspapers was found abandoned. Like Johnny, he was never seen again. The parallels were terrifying. 2 years later, in 1986, another Des Moines paperboy named Mark Allen disappeared on his way to a friend's house. 3 boys, same region, eerily similar circumstances. Were they victims of the same predator, a child trafficking ring, or was something darker at play? The disappearances became a shadow that haunted Iowa. Parents stopped letting their kids walk alone. Newspapers that once celebrated small-town safety now ran headlines about fear. And still, Johnny was nowhere to be found. One of the most controversial claims in the case came years later. In 1989, Noreen Gosch publicly stated that Johnny had returned home, alive. According to her, a young man in his 20s appeared at her door late at night. He was thin, with long hair, and accompanied by another unidentified man. Noreen insisted she recognized him instantly as Johnny. She told him he had been held captive by a child trafficking organization, that he had been abused for years, and that he was living in fear for his life. He said he could not stay, could not risk endangering her. After a brief conversation, he left. Skeptics dismissed the story as wishful thinking or delusion, but Noreen stood by her account until her death. If true, it meant Johnny had survived his abduction, but was trapped in a world of secrecy and terror. The disappearance of Johnny Gosch spawned countless theories. A lone predator. Perhaps Johnny was taken by a local pedophile who saw an opportunity. A child trafficking ring. Investigators noted disturbing links to organized crime networks that exploited children. This theory gained weight after Eugene Martin's disappearance. Government conspiracy. The most explosive theory suggested Johnny was taken as part of a government-linked ring tied to blackmail, trafficking, and abuse. Noreen herself supported this possibility, citing threats and intimidation she received. None of these theories have ever been proven, but each one adds layers to a mystery that refuses to fade. Johnny's disappearance did more than terrify a community. It changed America. In the wake of his case, along with others, new laws were passed requiring immediate action when a child goes missing. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was created in 1984, largely because of pressure from parents like Noreen Gosch. Television shows like America's Most Wanted began highlighting missing children. Awareness campaigns spread across the nation. For the first time, Americans realized that childhood safety could not be taken for granted. Johnny Gosch had vanished, but his story gave other families hope and tools to fight back. 40 years later, the mystery remains. Johnny's red wagon and scattered newspapers are still remembered in West Des Moines. His case is still studied by criminologists, journalists, and conspiracy theorists alike. Was he killed on the morning of September 5, 1982? Did he grow into adulthood, living under captivity? Or is the truth far stranger than anyone dares to imagine? What is certain is this: Johnny Gosch's disappearance changed the way America thinks about children, safety, and trust, and until the truth is uncovered, his shadow will remain. Johnny Gosch was only 12 years old when he disappeared. His face became the symbol of America's missing children, his story the spark that changed laws and raised awareness. But for all the impact his case created, one haunting question still remains. What really happened to Johnny Gosch? Until we know, his disappearance will remain one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries.